Hey, welcome. If you're joining us, we are excited to be here for the fourth day of the 12 days of Christmas. So far we've done counting forward. Can we count the 12 days forward? Day one was a partridge in a pear tree. Day two is two turtle doves. And so day one, let me go back, excuse me. We were talking about the power of language and word choice and selection, and even the number of syllables as we're drafting content for our learners. And so our free giveaway for you in day one was our little game called alliteration, the alliteration game, right? Then day two was two turtle doves, and we were talking about matching with those doves, matching mechanics and motivators. And so our free giveaway for you is our Matchimo game, where you can actually create a persona and come up with that persona's motivators and then work on matching the mechanics. And please feel free to share that game with your entire team. And you can take it out there if you're all working virtually. We've had people do it on Miro and they send me examples of what they've created, and it's brilliant. So feel free to unpack it and play it. Day three, we were three French hens. So we were going on a journey. We talked about player journey and what that adventure feels like. And we talked about if we had the opportunity to go to France with French hens, how would we plan that journey? And the essentialness of journeys and that history that we have with journeys throughout our whole life. I was thinking about the journey of when I was in band. Yes, I was a band geek. Yes, I was. I played the bassoon in orchestra, and then I was in marching band. And there was a journey that we went through in band from being that noob, that novice, to up to being the seniors, where we're the advanced ones and we've got the leadership roles and all the extra perks. And so we knew that journey as we entered it, and we progressed through it and worked hard to get up to that master stage. So in day three, because you'll be able to go on a player journey in Gamicon 48V, which is happening February 26th, 27th, and 28th, 48 hours around the globe, twice, nonstop. So much fun. The page will be fully live and ready to go by January 1. You can go out there and see a number of our speakers right now, and we are giving you a $100 discount off the cost of Gamicon 48V with the promo code 3, the number 3 French hens. And that's good throughout the 12 days series of live streams and giveaways. And so today is for calling birds. So calling birds, they had different names, collie birds. They were assumed to be blackbirds of some kind, crows, ravens. So we were going with calling birds and having a call to play, because play is so essential for how we've learned basically most things in life. Children learn through play. Maria Montessori, her premise was that the play is the work of children. That's how they learn. We learn about social interactions, boundaries, hurting someone's feelings, making someone happy. We learn strategy, math, language, matching, bigger, greater, bigger, less, right? All these different ideas that we use in life now, we learn that all through play. And just as we're starting to really add language to that, right? So we learn that furry thing in the corner that occasionally hisses at us because we pet it the wrong way or pull its tail is a cat. And then we learn cat is C-A-T. And then we get a little picture book and we see a little orange cat in there with C-A-T. And we're like, oh, this cat is the same as that cat. I get that. Our brain works that. And then just as all that's getting fun, we're making all these connections, the synapses are working at full power. Just when we're having fun and it's playful and it's delightful, what happens? You level up in your reading and they take all the pictures away. Because now you need to be more, I don't know what, mature, sophisticated, bored, punished for reading, right? And so now it's just black words on a white page. And one of my favorite memories from elementary school is I was kind of social. I kind of can talk a lot at inappropriate times when other people are supposed to be talking. And so I would get punished by being sent to the reading corner. We had those SRA cards, which I guess was supplemental reading activities. Remember, they had colors and level ups and great stories and little figuring out activities. And my punishment for talking was being sent to the SRA corner, which backfired on the teacher, because to me, the SRA corner was a reward, not a punishment. So if I'm talking and you're going to send me to the SRA table, guess what I'm doing a lot of? Talking at inappropriate times. And I've never learned the difference. So as we think about play, there's a situation that happened with one of our level 2 gamification journeymen. She created this beautiful, really brilliant design. And she's doing this all on her own. She works for, I'm not going to mention any companies, but she works for an entity that her boss said to her, I am not going to pay for you to go learn how to design a game for learning. I'm not paying you, and I'm not paying you to go to that. So she's been doing this all out of her own pocket. The challenge is the content that her learners have to learn is really dense, like 50 or 60 different facts with a lot of details. And when they evaluate their knowledge of that, they're testing them on spelling and grammar. I'm like, what are you doing? Why are we doing this? Like, who cares? If I need to know this, why do I need to have all these 50 facts memorized? Is there not a place I could access them when I need them? And if that's true, that I need to know them instantaneously, then if I'm spelling it phonetically, does that matter? Or does my grammar and spelling absolutely have to be correct? And all of that aside, this student created a brilliantly delightful journey, adventure, very playful. They're still getting all that content, but in a way that's much more palatable, that they'll be able to actually take the course in small little snippets to learn the information that her workplace is saying is essential for their learners. So when we talk about gamification, gamified learning, game-based learning, I think it's time that we start to take this seriously, because we're not playing. And I like fun and I like play, but when we're designing learning programs, we're not playing. What does that learner need to learn? Why do they need to learn it? What's going to be different after they learn it? How will you know they've learned it? What will you see that's different? How is this going to benefit the organization? How's it going to benefit that individual? All of that's a lot of complexity that can be wrapped into something that's really enjoyable and fun. And I think one of the challenges, Jonathan, is that sometimes people feel like, yeah, it was fun, but did they actually learn anything? And I think it's a valid question. We can't just be focused on the fun. We have to be focused on the learning. But then we can also look at learning programs that was like, oh my God, stick a pencil in my eye right now, because if I have to live another minute through this, I'm going to die anyhow. So you might as well just go ahead and stick that pencil in my eye. So my conversation about play is from experience and observation and lifelong love of this learning adventure. Jonathan actually brings science to the table, which is always welcome, right? Like, okay, Monica, that's great. Where's the science behind this? So talk with me about the science of play.
Science of play.
Or anything like that. So we call him, if you know his email is Big Head at Sententia Games. And because he is our big head. So he's like our go-to with any question we have. Jonathan, we don't understand this reference. Jonathan, how does this apply? And if he does not know, he is the first one to dive into the research to find it out. And nothing intimidates him as far as the learning. He has no learning curve that he's afraid of. So, Jonathan, talk with me about science and play. I'll shut up.
Right. So the important thing to realize is that our brains that we have developed over millennia. So our brain is not that much different from other animals. This type of learning of lecture and fill in the dot type learning is very, very recent. You couldn't have done that before the Gutenberg press. Everybody reads something, and then here's multiple choice, and you fill in the dot. Those types of tests are very recent in human history. And the part I always like to say is that when we became literate as a species. When we became literate as a species,
I have to put my glasses on.
good, thanks, Renee. If you're not playing as a species, where was I going? Oh, what happened is when we became illiterate, we turned to the subject matter experts at the time who were literate and said, well, how do you run a classroom where people are reading? Well, it happens that the people who were literate at the time, when the Gutenberg Press came out, were monks. Monks are not like the rest of us, are not like most people. They're very, very specific. For whatever reasons, they went and they decided to strip all joy out of their lives and wake up at 4:30 in the morning, not eat, not have sex. Some of them don't talk. Some of them beat themselves. These are not normal people. And that's who we turn to learn about education. And then, of course, we have the Industrial Revolution. And then we have, what else would we have had that came along the way?
Well, the Prussian influence that came over from
Austria.
Yeah. Oh, the gentleman Keith used to work for the Horace Mann brought over, and of course, because we had children in the workforce, we needed to get children out of the workforce because we needed to get men in the workforce. So we came up with child labor laws, and then we became up with that every child needs to be educated from certain ages. That meant we had to get thousands and thousands and thousands of children through a school district of learning, and how are we going to push them all through? We get the lowest common denominator of knowledge check, which is multiple choice, right? So we're just focused on getting all these students through. It wasn't because we really cared about educating children.
Yeah,
that was not the purpose.
Or it was behavior change. Even.
It was to have them be compliant, to be obedient, to be able to work in our factories and listen and do what they were told and follow directions. So we weren't really focused on critical thinking or creativity or artisanship or exploration or desire of what would you like to learn?
To fill a place in the workforce.
Yeah.
So like I said, all animals, what is natural to us is to learn through play. All animals learn through play, and our brains aren't that much different from other animals, just slight little things of some bigger cerebral cortex that we developed. What makes us different is about down here when we developed the capacity to speak. Once we could speak, then we could create language, and then we developed, so we did develop parts of the brain, but the basic pieces of the brain are pretty much the same all the way across. We have a little bit more of certain parts of our brain than others, but when it comes to the aspects, so when we study animals learning, they learn through play. Like Monica was saying, children learn through play, and then we stick them in a classroom and remove all play from it. And our species hasn't really developed a way to learn in that environment. So just really quickly, not to nerd out, the three types of play that all animals engage in is social play, which Monica talked about. And so that's when we find out the norms and the behavior and what should we be doing and what's my role, what's your role, is this a good thing, is this a bad thing? So that's through play. Then there's locomotive play, which this is chasing, jumping, mock fighting. So we're preparing for the future, preparing for our work someday. So if you think about what if we did that in school, then we had play for what we would be doing in work someday. And then the third that animals do is object play. And that's where we engage with the environment. So with sticks, children running around with sticks and so on. What's specific to primates and to humans is creating actual games. And so that's monkeys, chimpanzees, and gorillas. They also have types of games, and then we do as humans, of course, and then make believe games, which you would think would be specific to humans, but chimpanzees will be known to walk around with a little log and pretend that it's a baby chimpanzee and so on. So the important thing to say here is there's no all animals play, primates and humans, or humans are primates, but do things differently, slightly have an additional play. But this is how we learn to play, and learn is through play.
If you think about, what you were just saying as far as social, locomotive, and object, that's the three types of play. And then we think about the provisions that have to be present for our adult learners to really learn. And that is like to take an active role. So that is actively engaging either with an object or through movement. They are engaged with it. So it's something that's interesting to them. They are motivated to do the necessary actions to learn this. They believe the information is meaningful. So I think about like hunting, right? So where we start, where we're hunting with just a little bow and arrow, that's just a game we play now. But there was a time in our development where that was an essential for human survival, was to be able to get good at that. And then interact in that social context, which is, I guess, in that social side of play. And that's one thing that's really been pretty devastating to a lot of our workforce, is this isolation that's happened with COVID. It's not just COVID isolation, but we also have carried that over into all of our learning training programs. Corporate America would love to believe that asynchronous e-learning is the answer to all of their training needs. And it can be an answer to certain training needs, most definitely. But we also know, for those of you in the L&D, you know, what's your completion rate for asynchronous training? It's abysmal. I think the average is 14%. And that's because there is probably not really a desire. How am I going to use this information? Why is this relevant to me? Am I really engaged with it? And we've absolutely removed all social context from it completely. And I'll go back to what I was talking about yesterday. If we look at these games that people are playing, that they are earning, these games are billions-dollar industry. There is huge social context there. You're playing with people you may or may not know across the globe, with them and against them, in guilds, against other guilds. I mean, it's this huge social,
even non-player characters.
Right?
I mean, you're still engaging, even if it's not an actual person,
with a make-believe, right? Yeah. So that imagination again, right? So why is it essential to remove all elements of play from our adult learning? What's that?
Well, yeah, I don't know.
Why is that, Jonathan?
Why do they do it?
Why? Yeah.
Well, it's because of that, the Victorian work ethic of it can't be fun. We can't enjoy life. And so that's really where the roots of that are, is that if that idea that where there's work and then there's play, that they're not together, versus those of us who enjoy what we do, we know that there's not really that much different. If we're not miserable at work, then it is not play is not the opposite of work.
Yeah, even when things are hard. Like I'm working on a project right now, it's hard and it's big and I'm a little overwhelmed, but I get in the zone on it and I don't want you to stop me, because not you, but because I'm having fun, not like ha ha ha, but just the challenge of you are going to conquer this. You're going to solve this. You're going to figure it out. That is hugely fun for me. I know that's because I'm high power though, right? One of my motivators,
Right.
I will solve this. Yeah. I was thinking, Jonathan was talking a lot a couple weeks back, Jonathan, you were reading a book, and I'm sorry I don't remember the name, but the premise, or a New York Times article or something that you read about how we're teaching our audience, our learners, now that millennials have tipped and they are the majority part of the workforce. And so majority, and then the Gen Zs entering them. So the older, the Gen Xers, boomers will continue to decline. Yet we continue to teach our learners like we were teaching our grandparents. Do you remember the book, or were you referencing?
I made that up.
I thought it was from a book.
No, it was about the idea. The concept is that because of the classroom, if I talk about my classroom, like if I think of my third grade classroom, every the teacher is a German, so every desk had to be perfect, and you had to sit, and you had long periods of time quiet, and she'd scowl at you if you dropped your pencil, and there's just silence for what seemed to me long periods of time. Well, those classrooms don't exist anymore. I know a lot of teachers that just push all of the desks and chairs to the wall. And if you need a desk, you walk over and take a desk. You don't have a desk. You just go to a desk, any desk, whatever desk is open. And then our interactions happening inside the playground, the play area. Well, it's not play area. It's inside the classroom. So we're sitting on the floor,
But
sitting on
stations,
chairs.
yeah,
Yeah.
like language,
And so those students who, at the time, that this would be early, but let's say they went to Montessori or some other aspect, that's now inside the workplace. And so they don't understand learning that happens through instruction or just reading a bunch of text, hitting next, a bunch more text, hitting next, reading a bunch more text, hitting next, take a quiz. That's not something they necessarily grew up with.
Yeah. And what's interesting, because I'm a huge Montessori fan, I started my education path in early childhood till I had my first practicum. Then I thought maybe this isn't for me to work with early childhood. But my oldest was in Montessori through first grade. And the challenge when you move from Montessori to regulars, you really probably should stay through 8, because he had never picked up a pencil at the age of 6, because Montessori doesn't teach through worksheets. And I mean, he did pick up a pencil because we wrote and we colored and we did things outside of school. But inside of school, everything was manipulatives. He learned to count through beads and leather straps, and everything was this full engagement that required him to physically engage with the learning, which we know helps that learning to stick. Now, can we do that in our adult learning environments? More than we think we can. We can bring a lot of manipulatives into our, even if it's a virtual instructor-led training, you can let people know, find some common things around their house, make it a little, have these things at your desk. When we start the training program, roll of tape, a pair of scissors, a jar of peanut butter, I don't know, but some that most people would have in their home, and use those. And it doesn't have to be the same for everybody. You could find your 4 favorite things that are in your house and use those as manipulatives in learning. Our challenge is that leadership believes that when we talk about gamified, game-based learning, that we're talking about making things easy, and we are not. We're talking about moving towards mastery. And anything that we're going to be a master at is difficult. It's challenging. A lot of people quit before they ever become a master. And one of the things I always say, one of my sayings is, everything is hard before it's easy. Anything that we value, that we want to become good at, there was a time that it was hard. We had never done it before. We had no idea how to use it. We're like, what is this? Like, remember the first time you opened up an Excel? Like, what am I supposed to do with this? And why? And we had no idea how to use it. Now, some of you are absolute masters at Excel, and people come to you asking you how to do it. Some of us use a few features, but we're really comfortable with those few features, and we don't need to go watch a video every time we use it. We've become masterful in the areas that we need it. But there was a day when we didn't know how to do it. Now, we didn't get from there to here because it was easy. We got there because we were engaged. It was meaningful to us. We wanted to learn it. It was something that was important to us. And so as you think about your corporate training, your adult learning programs, again, we're looking at what's valuable for the organization, what's valuable for your learner, how can we get that overlap? And the more play type, not waste your time, not talking about any of that, but the more you can make things playful. Like, one of my analogies of that we all play is that when we used to all be driving to work, back when we lived in Austin, if we didn't leave home by 7:05 to get downtown, like if you left at 7:15, you were there for hours. If you left at 7:05, you could take a pretty straight shot. So I called the game rush hour roulette, right? So there's this little wheel that's spinning, like you got to leave at exactly the right time. You're leaving your neighborhood and you're waving hi to your neighbor because you know them and your friends. But as soon as you get out on that freeway, that highway, and it's you against them. They might come up next to you and wave at you like, hey, friend, will you let me cut in? And you stare straight ahead like you don't see them at all, because you're not my friend out here. We're both trying to get to that finish line, which is downtown for work. And I'm not giving you an edge to get ahead of me. So you got to calculate your lanes. And sometimes you get it right, sometimes you get it wrong. But if we didn't make it some kind of playfulness of how we're going to get to work without absolutely losing our mind, we wouldn't be able to continue to do it. So as you think about everyday life, I know my sister and I, we used to have to do dishes every night. I think we were like 8 and 9. And my sister and I loved to read. So we would take a book we were reading and like add on to the story, like make ourselves part of that story as we're doing this dreaded, boring task of by hand washing and drying dishes and putting them away. And that was still washing and drying dishes and putting them away, but it was also an opportunity for social imagination, creativity, all those things that are part of play. We still did the hard work. We just made it fun while we were doing it. So as we think about the science of play and the importance of play and how our brain is more creative when it's relaxed and when it's not feeling that pressure of failure, that failure is no redemption. If I fail, I lose. If I fail, I won't get certified. If I fail, I'll flunk the year. I'll flunk the course. If life was like that, we'd be in world a heap of trouble.
Yeah, exactly.
If every time failure was a permadeath, that I could not find another way, we'd be in it. But how many of our learning programs, we treat them that way? You get one chance at this, and if you don't get it, you get it. You're sorry.
Lose your bonus.
Lose your bonus.
Commission.
Yeah, something dreadful happens. How can our brains learn in that kind of environment? It just doesn't work. So we have a great free download for you today. It's just an infographic, but it's our framework that we use for bringing gamified learning into corporate training, game-based learning into corporate training or adult learning programs. And so I just call it serious fun, serious play, serious business. So you can just go out there and download it. Again, feel free to share it with whomever you'd like to share it with. And you can see from this link all the other episodes that you might have missed of our live stream, and we'll be keeping them out there. Just a little note that we are doing a Friday night game garage this week. So we'll be here at 5 o'clock on Friday night. And our game garage, if you've never been a part of it, is a time of play and exploration and hands-on, and there's a social aspect of it. And the people who have come to Game Garage love it. So if you haven't been there, give it a try. We'll be in Zoom, correct? And we'll be in Zoom tomorrow with Bernardo too.
Okay.
Most likely, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Right? Right? Yeah. So we'll make sure it's the same place. So you'll be accessing from the same place. If I'm wrong, we'll make sure you have the right link. But you'll be able to interact more freely inside that Zoom environment to actually play. And Fridays, 12 days, is 6 geese a-laying. So guess what our topic is at Game Garage? 6 geese a-laying.
Must be something to do with eggs.
Must have something to do with eggs, right? So it's about Easter eggs and that mechanic of Easter eggs and how examples of it and how we might use it. And so we'll just get a chance to explore that together. So tomorrow we'll be here at 10 a.m. on Thursday with 5 golden rings, and our good friend, colleague, family member, Bernardo Lateef will be here. He's the evil mind behind the operations, the genius behind Blue Rabbit, our gamification app that we use for our level 1 certification and our Gamicon. And Gamicon 48V will be fully gamified with Bernardo's app, Blue Rabbit. But Bernardo's going to be talking about branching scenarios tomorrow. And so I was going to tie that into 5 golden rings and how sometimes with branching scenarios, we end up in this endless loop, but how we can make sure we're mapping it correctly. So it'll be a lot of fun. If you haven't met Bernardo yet, you will love him as much as we do. Tomorrow morning, he'll be with us at 10 a.m. That is Thursday, the 29th of December.
Central.
Is there anything else we want to add to the importance of play?
Importance of play.
Science of play.
Oh, yeah. So when you hear all this talking about play, where gamification often doesn't get up to its potential is what we call cosmetic gamification, and where there isn't that sense of play, like, oh, we gamified it because we put a leaderboard. Well, leaderboards in of themselves aren't really playful. It's just a measurement, add some competition into it. Badges, having some little reward for behavior, that's, we know we can teach animals, train using treats, like with a dog,
Right.
but only if it's valuable. So for instance, if the treat, and I can make a dog roll over and sit with a little treat, if there's a bowl of treats over there that the dog can eat at any time, this suddenly loses its value. Therefore, we can't really train them. And so that's what in the Sententia model, that's why we go deeper than just throwing a few game mechanics on top, because there is no play there. There might be some competition, there might be some rewards, but to really make it meaningful is when especially when it comes to learning. With learning, we need play in order for learning to take place. Otherwise, we're just training dogs to roll over and sit.
Yeah. And really, the need for, with the technology and access to it, things that we had to have in the past because there was not access to the information, so much of that has been removed. So it's time to really do an overhaul of our programs and say, why are we still doing this? Why are we still requiring that everyone go through this? And there's a lot of old thinking out there because that's how I learned. So that's how we're going to teach them. But that really serves no purpose anymore. So we want to be looking at how we can walk through the positioning of, well, what will be different after they take it? How will we know that they actually learned it? Why do they need to learn it? Can they get it with just a job aid, right? So all those important questions as we're diving into this adult learning to make sure that it is effective. If we're giving people training in the workplace, we're taking time from their lives that they're never going to get back again, then it needs to be important and relevant to them. That they know that they're going to be able to use it to help make them more successful, tying that into how their role is helping the organization to be successful. If we do that, we will have engaged employees who stay with us. If we cannot connect those dots for them, then we'll have employees that don't show up because they're not feeling that engagement with you as much as you think they are. What's that movie? They're just not that into you. I don't even know the movie. So no, if it's bad, don't blame me. But okay, so that's where we are for today. Serious fun, serious play, serious business. Thank you so much for joining us on this live stream. We're having a blast with it. It's brand new to us. I know it's been around for a long time. It's not new technology, but Sententia is adding it into our mix for 2023. So we thought this would be a great time to start playing with it. My name is Monica Cornetti. I'm the president and founder of Sententia. And this is Jonathan Peters. He's our Chief Motivation Officer. And we love being here with you. We want to hear about leave a comment, like it, email us, whatever you need to do to reach out to us. If you've got any questions and there's something you wanted to make sure we discuss in these live streams, just let us know and we'll be happy to bring it to the table. Thanks so much, everyone. Merry Christmas.